Hey, welcome back for the second session. And thanks, Carl. We're going to continue where we left off the first session. So we're not going to let in the questions yet. But if I may, we spoke about Inagaki Sensei. And it's kind of interesting because we do have also a connection there. Inagaki Sensei were Uchideshi for O Sensei, I think in the late 60s. And my first teacher in Sweden, Tomita Takei Sensei, were fellow Uchideshi together with Inagaki Sensei. I think they were about the same age. And
all right.
Once when I trained, one of the few times I trained with Inagaki Sensei, when I managed to get him on the mat, jumping over from the back row to the front row, landing in Seisai in front of him, bowing before he could escape. And I got trained, you know, in Iwama, you train the whole, you get one person, you get to train with him for the whole session, at least.
Then, yes.
Back then. And afterwards, it was a fantastic training. He kept me right on the limit, but he felt my limit perfectly. So I always had a fantastic experience with Inagaki Sensei, although you heard some really tough stories about him from the early days. But my experience were just good. And my last experiences of him, when I revisited Iwama twice, has been, he's been a perfect gentleman. He's really looked after us and cared for us. So I have nothing but praise and gratitude towards him. But when we trained, and afterwards I thanked him for the training. He said, "Oh, that was really nice training. Who's your teacher?" And because he didn't know me much, I was just a white belt Uchideshi. And I said, "Tomita Sensei from Sweden." And he goes, "Oh, I know Tomita Sensei. We were like this, Uchideshi together under O Sensei." And that was actually quite a nice connection to tie the past with the present day. And it's very nice now to speak to you about Inagaki Sensei, because I know your influence from Inagaki Sensei from day one. And since then, I think, you know, you've been there such a long time now and spent 16 years. No, how many years now?
Well, 2006, so, well, technically 14 years, 15 years in Japan.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a
still,
lot. That's a lot. So I just want to pick your brain a little bit, if you don't mind, because I don't know to what degree you have spoken to him about his experiences with O Sensei. But you know as well, that anybody who's lived in Iwama Dojo know that O Sensei's room, O Sensei's house, is adjacent to the dojo. It's a passageway. You can walk from the dojo. If you sneak, you can walk straight into O Sensei's room. And it's a place where we really was off limits, but, you know, being a naughty Uchideshi, we would sneak in there from time to time. But don't quote me on that. But
you're putting this on YouTube, right?
Yeah, well,
you're gonna edit that part out, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm safe. I'm behind the camera here. So, but anyway, so in his room there's a bookcase with I don't know, Carl. Can you fill us in on what's in there?
It's the Reikai Monogatari. Is the I forget how many volumes. Many volumes, like 40 or so volumes of Onisabu Deguchi's teachings, basically. Very long. They look like they're very old and they might crumble to pieces if you touch them, but they don't. Inside, they are intact. A certain visitor, who I shall not name, but a senpai, so this is not I don't get the blame for this, but asked me to come along and witness and bring my camera. Well, he opened one of these books to see if O Sensei's annotations were inside. They weren't inside that set, but anyway, it is O Sensei's library. Just
to enlighten people about this, so Deguchi Sensei was the charismatic leader of Omoto Kyo, O Sensei's spiritual mentor and we could say guru in that respect. I find it interesting because, you know, we read a lot about O Sensei. We know that he did his own chanting practices, maybe morning and evening. Norito, I think is the
Hamamatsu Norito.
Yeah, but there's also for the whole time I stayed there, and until the earthquake a few years ago, there was a Japanese flat drum hanging in the dojo on the weapons rack. This is like similar to shamanic drum, and it's a Japanese flat drum, and I wonder, because once we were there, we never saw that in use, and I was wondering, I never heard or seen O Sensei. I never read anything about O Sensei using it, or ever seen it on old filmage. I was just wondering if you heard anything from Inagaki Sensei, who could tell you any story about that.
No, I'm afraid I don't know of anything about the drum being used, but it was hanging in the dojo when I arrived in 2006. And then, as you said, after the 2011 earthquake, the dojo was heavily renovated. And during that process, it got put on on the top shelf in the male changing rooms, and it's still there. Yeah. On the top shelf, gathering dust.
You should hang it back in the dojo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe we should just hang it back up again. But yeah.
Natalia, you can do that. Just hang it back in there. Nobody will notice.
So yeah, if you're interested in Inagaki Sensei's teachings of that time, though, he has told me a few things, but he wrote down in quite good detail about his experience in the Aikido Tankyu magazine. This is all in Japanese. I have translated it, and Inagaki Sensei has taken the translation with him to his seminars and had it read out to people attending his seminars. But I don't think he'd be happy for me to just publish it myself.
Carl, why don't you ask him? Because that would be a fantastic reading, I believe.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure what the copyright issue might be there. Translation of an actual magazine that people pay money for. But he has hinted that I shouldn't just go and put these things out. I've also translated a number of his lectures, which also, again, tell you a lot about not just when he was training with Saito Sensei and stuff like that, but also the concepts of Aikido that he has learned. And some of them he said, don't go putting this on Facebook. Don't do this. No, it is, you don't just give these things away. Also, just because they won't necessarily be understood understood correctly. So I think he wants to maintain some level of control over this. But the magazine is available. The translation, yeah, we need to ask Sensei about that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I want to get back to you about Inagaki Sensei's classes, because we know he trained all his life and started with O Sensei. But with now, as he's teaching in Iwama, when I was there now, when I revisited it, he was also teaching, sitting down and reading from O Sensei's writings. And I want to ask you this in regards to your own inquiry into O Sensei and the philosophy and the teachings of Aikido, in the sense of O Sensei's Shinto beliefs, the influence from Omoto Kyo and his whole understanding how that relates to Aikido, because I think Inagaki Sensei is very much trying to highlight that kind of side to Aikido, that kind of spiritual understanding of Aikido. And how far have you taken that in your own understanding in regards to coming to Iwama and having these teachings coming at you every week?
Well, in the article, he said that he has made it one of his main themes in his life is to pass on understanding of O Sensei's spiritual themes. Yeah, it's for me. As you said, I've been getting it regularly, and like pretty much everything he says makes sense to me. Like O Sensei's concepts, like Bankyo, Dokon, many teachings saying we're all looking at the same thing from different points of view. I think it's really helped me understand, how to reconcile my differences from other people and to understand other people and not get angry about them. And like this, where I started, the body is a vehicle, and we're using this as Aikido as a training mechanism, not just to improve the vehicle, but and learn the Budo. And it is Budo. It's obviously another thing that attracts people is that Inagaki Sensei is considered very tough and very powerful. But he's saying this is just like the tip of the iceberg, but this is the basic as well. This is the thing which we can nail, we can learn, and we can make our bodies powerful. But it's beyond that. It's like O Sensei's cosmology, and he has even said himself he's not an Omoto believer himself. He's stated that, although he has done Omoto courses. I think he has his own beliefs, but by understanding, basically, to understand O Sensei's Aikido, we have to understand O Sensei's mind and what he was thinking. And one thing that O Sensei was trying to achieve with Aikido, as I see it, is to make your own mind the same as the mind of the kami. And the kami, like the god, basically, is the universe itself. So always thinking about becoming one with the universe is like this understanding that we're just little parcels of the spirit of the universe. This idea of will, that is the universe, and we're just a part of that.
Carl, so in that respect, I like that idea. In what respect do you think the cosmology that we all read about, that O Sensei is speaking about, which uses a lot of old terminology, a lot of Shinto, a lot of, not so much Buddhist, but sometimes some Buddhist concepts, how much or how far do you think that relates to your physical practice of understanding the concept within your own body as you develop?
I think that it's like they're inseparable. One thing I just noticed is, like just a little thing like somebody grabs you by the wrist, your mind goes to your wrist and you try to use localized power to move your wrist. If you're very strong and powerful, maybe you can do that. But if you're much weaker than the other person, you can't. But then if you just stay centered and you connect with the other person, all of a sudden you can move. But this is just like the surface, I think, really. Well, you've also done some of the internal training. I know you've trained with Dan Harden.
I'm just a complete beginner, but it has opened a new world to me, and it's just fantastic. I find it fantastic, but I'm no authority upon it. But I was exactly so in one way, and it's really in one way now during these Corona times that we actually have to focus on a lot of more solo exercises.
Yes, yeah.
And how do you view, because the internal exercises which I'm learning and hope I'm trying to learn has so much to do with personal development in solo, coming out of solo exercises, even before we touch the other person.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, like I said, it's not, I don't think it's as focused as that on solo exercise, but we have solo exercises. Obviously, we do training with the bokken. I think it's almost like we're using the other person in Aikido. I think we're using the other person almost as like an exercise machine to knead the body into that shape, and we kind of help each other develop that way. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but that process is connected to the cosmology. One thing would be the 28 cuts, which we do. Like I've heard this was learned from O Sensei, and it's very, very rarely practiced elsewhere. But we cut to the north, the south, the east, and the west, and we do 7 cuts in between. And this is, I've heard of the same exercise in Daitori, but they just swung basically a heavy club kind of thing. I'm not sure which lineage that is, but within Daitoryu, but I remember reading about that and thinking, wow, sounds very familiar, because we spent ages just swinging the bokken on our own, well, together on our own. But it's not the cosmology from there, it's from Omoto. And it's because we're cutting 7 cuts in the direction of the Kimo, which are the demon gates. So you have Ushitori no Konjin, who's the founder of Omotokyo, received her automatic writings from, and that's one side, and the other side you got the other konjin. There are 4 konjin basically, and we're cutting 7 times in their directions.
Are you talking about Hapogiri?
No, this is another exercise.
What do you
Hapogiri may be related, but
what do you call it?
It has no official name. So Isayama Sensei, I've seen, has written it down as the 28 cuts, and Inagaki Sensei just gives it a description, Shihona na Tobongiri.
Can you describe the process of training that, please?
So you start like Kimasumi no Tachi, cut to the north, then you cut to the south, you cut to the east, and then you cut to the west, then you realign to the north, and then you cut 7 times between the compass points. And then you do the same again between each of the compass points. So you've done it 4 sets, which makes 28 cuts.
And you change the hammi from the right to left?
No, it's just stay in the same hammi. So all you're doing is turning and cutting. So it's basically, I think, the same as that exercise I read about it. I thought you just swinging the bokken. And it's like this solo exercise alone, I think, if you use your arms, you get tired. If you breathe up the bokken and then wring it out on the way down and extend kokyu through your hands into the tip of the bokken and far into the distance, it's effortless and you can do it forever. So we do this usually a few times in the morning class if we're doing weapons, if we're doing bukiwaza, ken. We're not doing jo or anything else. And yeah, I think, yeah, this solo practice right now is very important. But.
So who's teaching the morning classes? Because, you know, back in the day when we were there, we had, for the people who don't know, the Iwama practice doesn't involve, involves the morning weapon practice outside traditionally, and the evening practice, normal taijutsu inside the dojo. And usually the morning practice were for the uchideshi and for some selected sotodeshi. But how is it today? Because I believe only Inagaki Sensei is teaching the morning classes. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I first arrived, Nomoto Sensei was teaching the morning class too, and an afternoon class sometimes for the uchideshi. And then after he left, Inagaki Sensei took over the morning class. And he did, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. And it would be weapons classes. I didn't really go to them because I lived in Mito at first, but once I kind of moved out of the area, but I used to commute and stay as uchideshi at least once a month at that point. And that's when I started going to the morning classes more regularly. And then when I moved into Iwama in 2009, I was where I am now, this house. The dojo is not so far that direction. I can cycle there in 5 minutes. I can drive there in 1 or 2. I can fit it in before work. And I have been fitting in before work for many years now. And yeah, I've been attending as a non-uchideshi. And non-uchideshi have been training there when they can. The uchideshi dried up this year for obvious reasons. I think the last one managed to escape Japan in April, maybe the end of March. I forget which day it was.
I think one of them came back to London, and actually I've been seeing him online. Benny.
Yes.
That's very. But Carl, I want to let people in to ask the questions.
Yes,
but,
of course.
But just to sum up, what would you sum up? This is a big thing. But
for me, yeah, my first big change was I got my shodan here and then nidan, and yeah, even just shodan, I felt massive change in just my body, how I move. I'd go to other dojos and I felt like Superman. When I moved away and was only coming once a month for uchideshi, I'd be training at various places during that time. And I didn't mean to cause trouble, but I'd get into trouble and really didn't want any trouble. Some people would get angry with me because, and even if I did modify my behavior, like, you know, dance for them, sometimes they got into trouble anyway. But then other people loved me, thought it was great. But I realized I really had to move into Iwama and get to the next stage, which was third Dan. And I guess that's what he usually says. For him, he usually notices the biggest change third or fourth Dan, when people really start to understand Aikido. I still don't want to abandon my beginner's mind. I still make mistakes. I still get corrected, but I feel a lot more confident now, and I feel like I've kind of owned Aikido to an extent. I've started teaching a little, and I feel like now I feel like responsibility to pass it on. So yeah, I feel like I've achieved my dream, and now my dreams are for other people now.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Carl. It's been brilliant. I'm sure we could speak for another hour. There's so much to look into, but we have about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to let that be questions for everybody. So
okay.
Everybody, and we can keep this open, so why don't you unmute yourself and just ask any question. I think we are few enough that it's not going to be too bothersome. Great. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Yes. Hi, Carl.
Sorry you didn't make it this year.
Yeah, it was really bad. We were so thrilled to be going there, like 16 persons from our dojo.
Yeah, we're looking forward to you coming.
Yeah, next year. Next year we're planning it. But as you know, Magnus, our head of our dojo, has been there so many times now and trained a lot. And he's got this wonderful photo memory, remembers all the stuff, and he's been trying to catalog a lot of Inagaki styles, weapon styles, and things like that. He brought us home this 2x25 Kentai-Jo techniques and stuff. And I know you've also been kind of cataloging up Inagaki. It would be really wonderful if we could actually get, I don't know, a movie library of Inagaki doing techniques or photos or written down, and maybe a book even, because I know you got lots of material. And it would be really nice to have this. But I know it's kind of hard also because training with Inagaki, he kind of shoots off lots of techniques at the same time, and he's doing it in different orders every time, and new philosophies and new thinking. So, but how would you like to do that? The catalog of Inagaki styles.
It's a bit awkward, yeah. Like I've also thought I could record video myself. But there's also this feeling that this is a Budo still. I mean, teaching the spiritual aspects is one thing, but this forging method of achieving the spiritual goals is still a Budo. And it can be misused. It can be used against you. And one thing I remember when I first came to the dojo in 2006 from the Ichideshi, from Myanmar, which at that point was still a military junta. They said, you know, if you give someone like your CD player, there's the era of CD players still back then. You know, and the person annoys you or they become a bad person, you can use Budo to retrieve your CD player. But if you give them Budo, if you teach them martial arts, they can take your CD player and keep it, and they might beat you up if you go and try to retrieve it. So it seemed like a very funny explanation of it, but even O Sensei was very careful about how much he passed on. The students, like people like Iwama Sensei, would say they had to look with their eyes wide like saucers to try and catch what he did. And I think he made sure that he regulated how much he passed on. And I certainly don't want to just fire off Inagaki Sensei's works willy-nilly into the world. I think there should be
really understand that.
So yeah,
there's also the risk of it getting lost in the way.
That's the other thing. So yeah, so that's why I do things like this. So do you have another question?
That was it for me.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard someone else's question. Okay, so yeah, I would like to do something, but I feel a need for discretion. That's the word. So you could ask Inagaki Sensei when you come over.
Yes.
It has been done actually. Someone maybe during this call maybe has some videos of Inagaki Sensei. I won't say who.
Oh, ooh.
It has been done.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Carl, I just wanted to say as well, thanks for your patience. When I was in Iwama last year, yeah, you're really good to us in the group, and everyone there was really amazing. Just wondering how that experience has changed with all the COVID-19, the pandemic. How's things at the moment?
Well, this is also a kind of delicate issue. There's been no lockdown in Japan. There was the state of emergency. So we were training more or less as normal until the state of emergency, and then we were asked by the local government to close, which we did. So that was like from the beginning of April to mid-May, almost the end of May. So about a month we closed. Well, it's still Iwama though. A lot of us were, we were very close to each other, and we can still train. So I formed a bubble where we trained. We still used, we just did weapons. My neighbor, Mr. Nishizumi, is just over there. He has a nice big yard. And Natasha, who is on here now, Natalia, we just went and did Bukiwaza together. So I think I actually trained more during that time than I would normally train. We did, I was off work too, so we did like two sessions a day, and we just went through the weapons with masks and distancing by the weapons, and it's just us three. So, and yeah, and then after that we went back to training, and we're still training now. And to be honest, there's not much precaution going on really. It's a small community. There are no uchideshi, very few visitors. If there are visitors, they're the same visitors from the same places, and yeah, they're not from too far away. So yeah, training is for the time being back to normal, minus the uchideshi.
Carl, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know the waterfall behind Otago-san?
Yes. Takiri no Fudo-san.
Do you and Natalia, do you still go out there and have a shower under the waterfall and do some misogi? Is that something Inagaki Sensei encouraged, or that you?
Natalia, do you want to go first? I'll give you some time. Is she still there?
Yes.
I actually wanted to go today just because it was too hot.
It's really hot today, yeah.
But really no, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, my turn. Inagaki Sensei discouraged us from going there and meditating under the waterfall. One time, one of the Moto Sensei's uchideshi was talking about it, and Inagaki Sensei said, Mount Otago is quite a haunted place. It is a very important mountain for Omyodo, like that's a combination of Buddhism and Shinto. And like, it may even be one of the things that attracted O Sensei here, I don't know. There are 13 tengus that protect it. I've been one of those tengu before. But yeah, apparently there are lots of dead people on the mountain who don't realize they're dead yet. They're still going around haunting and looking for vessels to occupy. And the worst thing you can do is clear your mind under the waterfall and make an open space for one of these bad spirits to enter, apparently.
Ah, that's...
Well, I go there, but I don't meditate. I just go there and take a shower.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year, it's great.
Yes, I mean, when we were living there in Chideshi, that was our summer escape, to go out there. But as I understand it, O Sensei bought the land where he then built his dojo in Iwama. He bought it from Omoto Kyo followers.
Yes.
So that was already the Omoto Kyo connection with Iwama.
Yeah, there were already people here. He bought the land in 1940, and the Haiden and outdoor dojo, so not the dojo now, but just an outside training place, were built in 1943. Then the dojo was completed in 1945.
And the Aikido,
yeah, so Aikido was already, the first part was completed by that point in 1943. So yeah, and then yeah, after that, you have the sort of Haiden, you have the Okuden, which was the first part, which was built initially, Haiden, and then the Torii gate in front. So we have the square, the triangle, and the circle. So yeah, it's.
Do you enjoy Waka Sensei coming out every week? And is Waka Sensei, because we know it belongs to Ueshiba's family and all that, is Waka Sensei that, do you feel that he's owning his inheritance out in Iwama more than before?
I don't really go to Waka Sensei's class so often because I'm often busy with work that evening. But when I do go, it's usually good fun. And recently, of course, Dojo and Waka Sensei are not coming so often, but their replacements will come sometimes, or you'll just have a local person teach if a replacement can't come either. And I've been enjoying the Hombu classes actually for various reasons. And yeah, I think it's been good to have this connection with Hombu now, a friendliness between us.
No, I totally agree with you. And my curiosity was just that since it is their place, you know, I mean, just thinking about it, I was thinking, I mean, it's because even after the earthquake, when I came back after it was rebuilt or repaired, it's a wonderful place. It was a wonderful place back when I was there, and it's still the feeling, the sense of O Sensei's place is still there. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I could just see Waka Sensei, who's a city boy, Tokyo boy, completely owning, you know, his great grandfather's place, and maybe even taking it closer to him.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure what you meant by owning, but obviously it's always been owned by the Ueshiba family, even during Saito's time. But yeah, there does seem to be a lot of respect between both sides. Like, I think everyone knows that for people like yourself, it's like a home. Its history has been made here, and people have very strong connections. But those connections also include into the Hombu as well, because people from Hombu have been coming here, well, for like a long time. I think Waka Sensei took over as dojo chief in 2015. So we've already had like 5 years of him coming here anyway. And before that, though, whenever we had any events, Doshu Sensei would come, and we'd have the people from Hombu helping out, and Wadi Sensei shouting at them, and it's a interesting melting pot. And I think it's been a positive experience. Yeah, I like the connection.
Any other questions? Carl, how shall we wrap this up? Do you have some thoughts and feelings about Iwama?
So, well, you've been asking me a lot about Inagaki Sensei. I said he's staying in the background, but that's one interesting thing is he can take the limelight too. And it's not like he's been shy. He's just been I think very controlled and careful. He seems to be like really putting everything he learned into practice regarding Aikido. I think he really has put it into his whole life. So it's actually a very, very good example for me, very inspiring. So I feel like a failure a lot of the time. I can't do it that well at all. But as a way of improving your life and well, considering everything. Isayama Sensei also said we have to keep harmony between three things. First of all is, of course, we must take care of ourselves. but then we take care of the people around us, the harmony, ourself and the environment. And then eventually, yeah, the big picture, the universe, the whole thing, we have to have harmony in the environment. And you can't really favor one too much. If you just think about yourself and never mind everyone else, it's no good. It creates an imbalance. If you think about just other people and not yourself, then you go to pot. If you don't think about the environment, even if you and your friends are great, you're going to get hit by the environment. So that's another kind of spiritual theme I think I've picked up just generally in Iwama is looking at the big picture and our part in it.
Great, thank you. That's a lovely note to finish on. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Carl. I'm gonna put this into 2 YouTube videos, and please post them and pass them on to people that could not make it for this morning here in England and afternoon for you in Japan.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Guys. See you later.
See you later. Okay.